Hello and welcome to another season of Sunday Night Conversations brought to you by D1Baseball.com. I'm your host, Michael Patrick Rooney. I want to remind everyone that Netting Professionals is the official netting partner of D1 Baseball. Netting Pros, netting, and wall padding products have been featured in Major League Baseball venues such as Citi Field, Truist Park, and many collegiate facilities throughout the country, including the universities of Florida, North Carolina, Binghamton, Texas, and many more. From design to fabrication to installation, the Netting Pros mission is to improve programs one facility at a time. And presented by Netting Pros this year is Stadionic. Stadionic is a proud new partner of D1 Baseball for all your major product and project and facility needs, whether you're a top-tier collegiate program, a high school, you're in parks and recreation or tournament complexes. Stadionic helps elevate your facility with the best products and accessories in the industry. Stadionic, making sports facilities iconic. Woo! Boy, that's a humdinger. We're super excited to be back for Sunday Night Conversations. An awesome topic to kick it off. Stadionic, not the only iconic part of this show tonight. I've got three iconic guests from California. Lonnie, I'm going to say you're from California. That's where you're really from, even though you work in Texas. So I've got Dave Lawn, CL, if you will, Coach Lawn, pitching coach at TCU. Got John Savage, the head coach at UCLA, and I've got Ben Orloff, the head coach at UC Irvine. What these three gentlemen have in common is our topic, which is the great Skip Gillespie, the legend. And Ben played for Skip and coached for him. Coach Savage and Coach Lawn coached for Coach Gillespie. Of course, I got to coach against him. It was incredible. And when you start to think about Skip Gillespie's his resume, his legacy, it's really bonkers. I'm going to try to be brief, but 16 years as the head coach, junior college coach, College of the Canyons, won 3 California state titles back in the heyday when the California JUCO system was just littered with big leaguers. Finished state runner-up twice. There was no baseball program at College of the Canyons before Skip got there. He started the program and in 16 years turned it into a program that was winning the state. Spent 20 years at USC. One of the cool things about Skip with his USC career is he's one of only 2 humans ever to win the College World Series as a player and win it as a head coach. The other is Jerry Kendall. Skip was the left fielder on Rod Dato's 1961 national title team. That was the second title for USC. And then in 98, Skip won it famously as a head coach. That was the 12th national title for USC. And then, things happen in modern college athletics, and Skip and USC part ways, and he ends up at UC Irvine. And, it was more than just a swan song. It was an awesome 11-year run, as Ben will attest to, multiple super regionals, the 2014 College World Series trip. So, how about 1,156 Division I wins? That's just bonkers. So just it's not just the accomplishments, it's the person, it's the persona, being on the other side of the field from Skip, like just one of those legends. I think there is no better word for him than legend. So here's what I want to start. And Lonnie, I'm going to have you go first. Tell us your origin story, like how you came to work for Coach, how long you worked for him. Yeah, tell us how you got started with Skip.
Well, I actually played for him as well. I played 2 summers in the Alaska League for the North Pole Knicks. And I had a great high school coach in Larry Carrico, a great junior college coach in Tom Purse. And when I got to North Pole to play for Coach, that really kind of got me going on wanting to be a coach. And then as my time kind of came to an end at Cal, John moved on to UC Irvine. I then became the pitching coach at SC with him for 7 years, I think. And so that's kind of the deal. I was actually not to the extent that Ben was, but I played 2 summers for him in Alaska.
That's awesome. So the North Pole Knicks, I'm assuming, is Fairbanks?
Well, it's outside of Fairbanks, about 25 miles.
The suburbs of Fairbanks.
The suburbs of Fairbanks. Yes, it was something.
Oh gosh. And Lonnie, before we move on to Coach Savage, so and Skip is part of your legacy here. There can't be another human alive with this stat of yours, Lonnie. So you're the only human I know of that has coached a team in Omaha in each of the last 4 decades. 1992 Cal Bears, 2001 USC, which is, that's the Mark Pryor team. This is you and Skip when you first went there. 2016 U of A, 2023 TCU. Just
21,
incredible.
21 Arizona.
21.
TCU. Yeah.
21.
21 Arizona.
Oh, right. That's right.
Yeah.
I put you at TCU too quick. Gotcha. Oh man, incredible. Coach Savage, go ahead. So Coach Long gave us a little bit of, you were with Skip. Tell us how you got there. How'd that come to pass?
Well, it was spring of '96. I was in Nevada. I was finishing my 5th season at Nevada, and I had some people talking to Skip about me. We had never met. We coached. We were at Nevada. I was in Nevada in '96. I think we came down and beat USC 2 out of 3 in a non-conference series. So, first time I ever coached against him. Met him, but it was brief. And then at the end of that year, he flew up to Reno, kind of just on I think a few recommendations from Dave Lawn and Frank Cruz and Frank Sanchez, and I'm not sure exactly who was behind it, but I'm pretty sure that particularly those 3. And he spent the weekend with Lisa and myself. I'll never forget. We toured. We drove around Reno, and we went into my office and we broke down the recruiting, how I recruited, talked about pitching a lot, and he just trusted the people that were talking to him. And I, wasn't sure I was going to get the job, but we spent an unbelievable, incredible 48 hours up in Reno, and then I think a week later or something, he offered me the job. But that was my first Mike Gillespie connection, and he spent quite a bit of time with Lisa and myself, during that time, and we got to know him very, very well. And you could just tell he was such a baseball person, and he was such a baseball guy, and most importantly, just a genuine good person that cared about people, that was very loyal, honest. There was just so many descriptions, really, in a short period of time. You could tell that this guy was special, and you just had to read up about him, and then you met him. So he was, you put him in a different perspective right away, even, before you even met the guy. That's what you used to do with Mark Marquez and Bob Bennett and Dave Snow and George Horton, Augie Garrido on the West. I mean, we all looked up to those guys on the West. Those were legends. And I can get into a lot more. I mean, Bob Milano, Andy Lopez, I'm forgetting some guys. I mean, just some remarkable guys that won and developed. And so it was an honor to have him up. And, he offered me the job really out of, I don't know. I mean, I was fortunate, and because we didn't know each other very well. And, he got to almost become my second father in a lot of ways. And we just had an unbelievable relationship until he passed. And it was just that I really have to credit Lonnie and Frank and because he really did not know me, and he got to know me. And I like that about him. It was kind of done the right way when you hire a person, unlike today. You got to know a person and so forth. So that's my first, interaction with Skip, and it hit home because Lisa saw it and I saw it, and we knew, that this guy was not only a baseball legend, but was certainly a man that you could trust and count on and wanted to work for.
Can I just
go ahead,
step
Lonnie.
on?
Yes,
can I just
please.
step on? John's missing one little point. So all this was going on. He was needing to hire a pitching coach because Frank Sanchez was going to Pepperdine. And I remember talking to John one night, and I don't even know if John remembers this, but I said, "Hey, have you talked to Skip?" And he goes, "No, I haven't heard of him. I haven't heard from him," because there was some sort of gap before what John describes his time in Reno with Mike. And he goes, "Yeah, I haven't heard from him." And I think, you know, I don't know. Weren't you involved in that Texas deal too? There was some sort of there was
Cliff
a pitching
I was
coach
flying
in
to I was
Texas.
flying to I was flying to Texas the next day, and I picked up the paper, and Cliff Gustafson, retired. And I talked to Cliff the night before. He was like, "Wait a minute. I mean, did he retire, or did he get let go, or what?"
So,
I'm like, "What?"
anyways, John says, I say to John, "Hey, have you heard from Mike?" He goes, "No, I haven't heard from him." I go, "Well, do you want the job?" And he goes, "Yeah, I want the job." Well, call him, because Mike and I had this, relationship, and we were talking, and like John says, I had whatever influence I had, but the point being, I think then that came maybe before Mike went up to Reno to visit with he and Lisa.
It's awesome. What a great story. I just, Skip is one of those guys where, for me, when I first, you first meet him, I'm thinking this guy could be the CEO of a Fortune 50 company. Like he's got such presence, and he's so smart and articulate. And like, I always felt real sped up around Skip, but he never felt sped up. Like he just felt like he's processing everything very slow. And as you said that story, John, I'm picturing myself getting a call from Skip saying he's coming to my town for 48 hours, and I would have needed heart paddles. Like, I don't know that I would have survived that weekend. That is so good.
Yeah.
Intimidating. Ben, Skip took over at Irvine your junior year. Do I have that right?
Yeah, so my sophomore year, 2007, we went to the College World Series, and that summer or off season, Coach Serrano takes the job at Fullerton. We were without a coach for a good amount of time. He gets named the coach like the start of September. We actually even had like a week of practice before he showed up. And so I played for him in 2008 and 2009. We went to a super regional in 08 and lost in the last game ever at Alex Box. Hosted a regional in 09 with him. And then I went and played pro ball for 4.5 years. We stayed in really good touch. And then he called me in June of 2013 when I was in AA, and I ended up quitting because he offered me a job. And so I quit in 2013 to take a paid job working for him back at Irvine. And so I was fortunate enough to play for him for 2 years. And then I worked for him for 5 years. And then I was his neighbor for 2 years.
Oh, that's awesome. The neighbor part's incredible. And you guys are like walking distance from the field. Is that right? Or is it not quite a walk?
Yeah, we live like a mile and a half from the field, and he lived on the next street from me. So I'd walk to his house in less than 1 minute.
That's amazing. Tell me this, like, so you played for him as a junior and a senior. What do you think it would have been like playing for him as a freshman and a sophomore when you're not as settled? You know what I mean? Like what would that have been like, you think?
I mean, it would have been great. I'm glad I caught him. I mean, he came at Irvine at the exact right time. And, you said it. I don't think when he took the job, he thought he might be there for 11 years or anybody did, but he had such a good run at Irvine. And so I don't know, had he been there all 4 years, but I know the time that he came in, I had we were a good team. I had kind of established myself as I had played college baseball and done well. But I think he kind of helped raise my game to another level, and just the situational awareness and all of the things that we all know him for, to get to experience that and play for that for 2 years. And just kind of his standards. I remember he used to get mad, wouldn't be the right word, at me. But, you'd throw a ball across the diamond and the first baseman would catch it, and he's yelling above the waist. And I'm thinking, above the waist? Like, the guy caught it, he's out. But I think just his standard helped me kind of raise my own standard and really see it through a more critical, good lens.
And to your point about the Irvine run, like, you said the 2008 Super Regional, which at Alex Box, like, if I recall that correctly, you guys gave LSU way more than they wanted. I think you guys won the first game and they had to scramble back and beat you twice. Or if not, you had a big lead in one of those games. And then 09 is the Strasburg Regional. You guys have the defending national champs Fresno State in there. Steven Strasburg's there. That was Virginia's first trip to Omaha with Brian O'Connor. Yeah, and then, I'm sure in 2014, Irvine had to go to Omaha completely on the road, no home games there. So, incredible. It's and Lonnie, to your point, like I meant to say this in the beginning, Skip had an incredible run at all three places, but there's 8 years, and Coach Savage, you and Lonnie, you guys both are kind of, you're in this mix. From 95 to 2002, man, was it humming at SC. Like, it's 4 College World Series, 2 trips to the finals, and maybe it's 2 national titles if Fullerton doesn't have a dude named Mark Kotze. 4 straight supers in the new format when we were all trying to figure that part out. So that 8-year stretch was just incredible. So I'll give you guys my 2 things that I think of when I think of my first introduction to Skip. First is I went back and watched it today. 1998 national title game against Arizona State. I wasn't there yet. I was getting ready to go there, at that summer. And he has Morgan Ensberg steal home famously. But when you go back and watch the context of that, it's unbelievable. It's like so Skip. First of all, it was the top of the 7th inning. And if you're listening and you've never seen this play, just Google USC 1998 national title game. Coach Savage, you're in the dugout. John, you're in the dugout. And so it's 11-8 in the top of the 7th. That game ended up being 21-14, and everyone remembers that score. But it was 11-8 in the top of the 7th. Wes Rachels is hitting. He's 4 for 4 that day. So he's up. It's 2 outs and 2 strikes. Bases loaded. Morgan Ensberg's at third base. And so you're thinking, like, I just think the details matter, right? So it wasn't just like Skip got a wild hair and Morgan Ensberg stole home, right? The whole at bat, Morgan Ensberg is sprinting down the third baseline and stopping. Sprint, stop, sprint, stop. And Arizona State has a true freshman on the mound, Chad Pennington, who's a great kid, a really cool customer. But so Ensberg's got this set up. And then finally it gets to a 1-2 count and Ensberg's off. And by the end, Arizona State's 1 pitch away, 1 strike away from getting out of that inning. They're the home team. It's 11-8. But you blink and it's 14-8. And so the details really mattered to Skip. That was my impression. Like, when you played you guys, it was a very detailed opponent. And as you unpack that steal of home, of course, the chutzpah, the courage to call a steal of home in the 7th inning of the national title game, another thing that I'm not sure I would have the courage to do. But just the details behind that, against a freshman pitcher with a kid who's 4 for 4 on the day up. All of it was incredible. So, Lonnie, I'm going to come back to you, and you guys can feel free to unpack some of those. Oh, well, let me tell you guys one more story. And then Lonnie, the next question I've got for you guys is I want you to describe him as a coach. But here's my other story. Fall of 2001, Murph hated the coaches' meetings, hated them. And when I say Murph, I'm talking about Pat Murphy, the Brewers manager, and he's part of the story. That like, as you mentioned, you guys both mentioned, like the West Coast coaches at the time were just all legendary. And so Murph hated those Pac-10 coaches' meetings. So he knew I was dying to be a head coach. So he said, "I'll tell you what, Runes, I don't want to go to this meeting. You fly over to LAX. The meeting's at the Marriott over there. You go to the meeting. You go for me." And I'm like, "I'm sorry, what? What did you just say? Like, there's no way in Hades I'm going to this meeting." And he's like, "No, you do it. I'll skip it. So if either you go or no one goes." And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm going. And think about the coaches at the time. It's Skip Gillespie. It's Mark Marquis, as you mentioned, John. It's Andy Lopez. It's Pat Casey. It's David Esker. It's Ken Knutson. It's Coach Adams. Like, I belong at this meeting only under one condition: if I'm serving water to these guys, right? Like, there's no chance I belong in this meeting. And I walk in, I can barely breathe. I'm so nervous. And I sit down, And out of nowhere, Skip Gillespie sits right next to me. And now I'm really going to have a heart attack. And he can tell I'm super nervous. And he says, hey, that Pedroia kid, you're going to have him for 4 years and he's going to be a superstar. Like, so he does that, right? Like, I was not going to speak unless spoken to. And I never forgot that. Like, for him to go out of his way, notice how I can't even imagine, I must have been white as a ghost, sit down next to me and then start a conversation like that, and also have awareness of our roster like that. So I'll never forget that because he was so intimidating. So Lonnie, you kick us off. You could go anywhere you want with this, but I'm curious, like if someone said, tell me about Skip the coach, how would you describe him?
Well, John and I, and Ben included, he's like the nicest, meanest person you'll ever.
That's amazing.
He's the most elegant, clumsy person you'll ever meet. I think two things for me, what I learned from him as a coach. One, there's no bad wins. When you win, it's a big deal. And if you won and played bad, and John and Ben can attest to this, like let's say you had a 1 o'clock game the next day and stretch would typically be at 10. If he said, after the game, he'd go through the game and he'd talk about the pluses and the minuses and all that kind of stuff. And okay, 9:45 stretch, which is 15 minutes earlier than 10-minute stretch. That's when he'd get you. So like winning was a big deal. And you could win ugly, you could win clean, you could win all points in between. And then to me, the other thing, and this ties kind of into Murph, he would always talk about how, it was always such wasted energy to get mad at the other coach or like hate the other coach, because I remember him saying this to me and it's resonated forever. They're the only guys on this field that know exactly what we're going through. So, we may not like them on that weekend in April, and we may end up dumping the benches or throwing fists or whatever. But he'd say, everybody kisses and makes up in the summer when you're out and about and you're watching games and you're doing all that kind of stuff. So, and I mean, this should be a 3-hour show, Runes. I mean, because we could go forever. When the three of us, John and Ben and the guys that are playing or coaching with John or coaching, I mean, we'll be at the area codes, and at some point it's going to go to Mike's stories. Because, but I mean, and then the way he would spend time with people, like if Mike Rooney showed up in the office and he knew you because you had coached at SC or at ASU and you're, you're now working for ESPN and you come in. I mean, he had this aura of being intimidating and arrogant, but he really, really wasn't.
Yep.
And,
yeah, that's well said.
And if you were a really good player, he loved you. And if you were a tough player, he loved you. I mean, so yeah, that's what I got.
That's awesome. John, go ahead. Go wherever you want with that. But how would you describe Skip?
Well, I think first off, offensively he was as good as I've ever been around. I mean, you talk about exploiting weaknesses, putting pressure on people. He just had that presence about him. He had that one pitch ahead about him that you just couldn't teach. A lot of guys try to act like him or try to be like him, and he just had it. He had that thing about him that he just knew weaknesses. He knew leg times. He knew the lack of a breaking ball. He knew lack of fastball command. He knew you could run on the catcher. He knew you could bunt on the third baseman. He knew you could run on the outfielders. He knew that we wanted the first baseman to handle the ball instead of the third baseman. He had this in-game knack about him that was so genuine, that's so elite, that you don't see that often today. You know, there's guys out there that are really good baseball coaches, that you feel. I think you always feel. I'm a pitching guy. I always feel good offensive guys. I always feel good lineups. I always feel good pressure. So I think exploit weaknesses, pressure. He was always a pitch ahead. And then the other thing that Lonnie hit on, I think his timing of messages were just so unique and so genuine and so right on. You know, after games, before practices, during games, after he pull a pitcher, on the mound on a visit, in between innings. I mean, his timing was immaculate, and and that's what guys don't understand is timing in today's game. They don't understand the timing of the message. And then the other thing is he always had time for people. And that, what can you say about a person that always has time for people, regardless of their status? If they were Augie Garrido, or if they were, the water boy from San Diego State. I mean, he treated that person the same. He did not treat people differently, and particularly baseball people. He loved good baseball people. He wanted to always learn. He always wanted to hear about your story. He always wanted to hear about your thoughts, your ideas. He was never above the game. The game was always in eye level with his mind. He never, I don't think he ever coached one game harder than the next game. The national championship game was really no different than some of our fall games. I mean, that's just that's how he was. He was so comfortable on being himself. He was so comfortable in his own skin. You hear that a lot, but you really, as a young coach, you saw it. You saw it, how he talked to people, how he'd listen. He was so well read. His language is the language of it was unbelievable. His vocabulary, it just made him so, like Lonnie said, he was so intimidating at times and so genuine at times. And he could turn on a switch, man. I mean, he could turn into the dirty baseball coach at any time. And it was just so fun to be around because he loved fellowship. He loved being around his assistants. He loved going to lunch, or he loved going to dinner on the road, or, he was just all about the right things. And, I don't want to get too off path here, but I just, when you ask about, what made the difference, it was a lot of in-game. It was a lot of effect he had on people inside the game. He can intimidate umpires. He can intimidate players. He can intimidate coaches. He can intimidate pitchers. He could, he just had a sense about him that was so awesome. And like you talked about when Casey and Garrido and Marcus were all in the same league, man. And Lopez, there's nothing better. I mean, it was so, as a young coach, you learn from these minds. And I was so fortunate to be around him during his prime of his career, because he was so sharp, and he was sharp till the end. And like Ben said, the 11 years he was at Irvine, I mean, literally his firing was the worst firing in the history of college baseball. I mean, you could literally say that, and I don't think anybody could look at that any different way. I mean, the guy was still very, very, very sharp when he got fired. And, it's like, how's this guy get fired? And it was just, just the impact he had on people, the players, the game is really what stood out to me.
Yeah. We may come back to this, but like being in the other dugout when Skip would go out to argue with an umpire. It was like watching a world-class surgeon get ready to operate. Like it
Oh, yeah.
was in the other dugout. It was unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
It was like you
was-
put your clipboard
It was
down
worth the
and
price
just
of admission. That was worth the
take
price
it
of
in.
admission.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Let's get some popcorn and let's take the. It was
Oh,
the
man.
slow saunter out there. Oh, so great. Ben,
And
go
then
ahead.
you put Pat Murphy in the other dugout, then you really had it. I mean,
But Murph was a different kind of surgeon. It was more of a chainsaw with Murph. Skip was more. Yes.
unbelievable.
Yes. Go ahead, Ben.
I think, that word that you said going through that steal of home, I think details, I think that's where I'd start talking about Coach Gillespie. I mean, he used to say there are no small things, there's details, and then would kind of use the experience that he had and the games that he had been in the past, that I think he did a great job of these seemingly things that seem small to a player or a coach. He would reference back to even, bunt defense. Is it a small thing if we don't get out on a bunt defense, or a detail that's going to cost us the championship? I vividly remember just every year the base running at second base. He'd go through it and kind of just probably kind of how almost everybody teaches it. Nobody out, you want to tag up on a fly ball. One out, you want to go part way. You're kind of listening, and then he'll reference whatever year it was in the 90s where they were playing in the game to go to the national championship when it was a single elimination. They were down by 1 in the 8th. How he tells the story, guy at second, 1 out, a guy drives the ball to deep right. Guy goes back to tag up with 1 out. It goes off the wall. They can't score them. Pop up, strikeout. They lose by 1. Don't play for the national championship the next night. And so that would go into the teaching of base running at second base. And so the importance level for all of us raises. And he was so great at the details. You guys mentioned umpiring, the rules of the game. I mean, even in his last year, if you would go into his office, he would have the rule book open in his office, going over the rules in year, whatever it was, being a head coach. And I think the responsibility of coaching, that whenever anything, I'm talking now as a coach, something would go wrong on the field, before he would think about the player, he would say sometimes verbally, have we practiced it enough? Have we coached it good enough? That's where he would always land. And so I think that responsibility that he felt in coaching the details, the situations, and then, as you mentioned again, that steal of home, the courage that he had, he talked that, you have to have your own book. There's these percentages, but you got to have your own book and your own percentages of what you think the game needs. And there's no better evidence of that than that steal of home that, you guys got to witness, not me, but I remember coaching third base for him for 5 years, and there's 1 out and there's a guy in third, and you're in the runner's ears every time he's given signs. Hey, stay with it. Squeeze could be coming. It gets to 2 strikes. And as a third base coach, the first time coach who is very fortunate to have the job he has, it gets to 1-2. Hey, he goes ball right here. He's going to get to squeeze. He's going to go to squeeze. Stay with it. 2-2, and you're watching the signs with him. And squeeze, you got it, right? Squeeze, 2 strikes. And he had no fear if it didn't work. He would come right back to it, next game or the next inning. And I envy that as a head coach now. And then I think Coach Savage touched on it a little bit, his desire to win. I mean, he really wanted to win. If it was the fall, if it was certainly the spring. In his last year, he was 78 years old coaching, and he really wanted to win. Really wanted to win. I mean, at every practice, at every game, that was really important for him. So I'd kind of, boil it down to the details, the courage that he had, and his drive to win.
That's amazing. The as you guys were talking, Lonnie, you mentioned, the relationships at the end, and that the other coaches know what you're going through. Obviously I work for Pat Murphy, and him and Skip became, there was a tremendous rivalry there. You guys, John and Lonnie, you guys were in a lot of those games. It wasn't always it was very chippy. More, yeah. It was often chippy than not, right? Like if the game was peaceful, you were shocked, right? It was, and there were 2 really good programs at the time. And I remember, and Murph has, kind of lamented that he, in that point of his career, he wasn't trying to make friends. He didn't want to be friends with people. And maybe that's regrettable, but and it's funny how it all comes full circle. But him and Skip became really close at the end, like really close. And like that speaks volumes to me. And what you guys were describing, I got to cover the 2011 Super Regional when Irvine played at Virginia. And Chris Taylor was the shortstop for Virginia. Virginia was loaded. Danny Holtzen was their, I think he was the two-way player of the year. And, Skip had, like you said, John, like ridiculously fired at USC, like just so shameful, right? Like just what are we even doing? Like that person Skip deserved to coach at USC until he decided that he didn't want to be there anymore. And that's not what happened. So he goes to Irvine. Like you said, Ben, in 2008, you're 1 win away. In 2009, you guys, if you didn't host as a top 8 national seed, like you hosted, and that was an incredible accomplishment. And so now we go to 2011, and Irvine, if you remember that Super Regional, they ended up being 1 strike from Omaha. They were up 2-1 in the 9th with 2 strikes on Chris Taylor. And he hits like a 12 hopper up the middle to score 2 and win it. And 2 things I remember about that Super Regional. One is Virginia handled Irvine in game 1, beat them 6-0, and everyone was just kind of like moved on. And in the middle of game 2, there was a rain delay. And that goes like they'll let you go back to the hotel. And everyone's just kind of reorienting themselves. And I look down from the press box and the stands are cleared out. And there's Irvine's team with Skip at the concession stand, and they're eating hot dogs. Like the modern nutritionalists would have they would lose their minds. And Skip's got his team down there at the concession stand. They're just hammering hot dogs, right? Like the game is going to resume. Like there's going to be and by the way, you're playing for Omaha. So of course they win that game. And then they end up being 1 strike away. And I can only imagine how much that would have meant to Skip given what transpired at USC. And I went to the press conference afterwards because I wanted to see how he would handle that. And so he's walking out of the press conference, and I'm not sure whether to say hi or what, but I do say hello. And he was so gracious. Like he went out of his way to stop and talk to me and say, hey, like, that's so cool that you're doing games for ESPN. Really proud of you for that. Like like you guys, you said it, John, like he made that moment about me. And I'm just in my mind, I'm like, holy heck. Like he just had his heart ripped out of his chest, and he had the composure to, like lift me up in that moment. And I was like, oh my gosh, like again, another lifetime experience.
That was the beauty of him. He just taught us all how to win and lose graciously.
Incredible. Hey, so Lonnie, let's go around the horn again. Like here's what I'm looking for. I either want, you guys could do one or the other or both. Give me your favorite Skip story. And it might be kind of like the same thing, or when you think of Skip, think of a player that you coach together that like you can't unpair them. Like when you think of Skip coaching, like this player always comes top of mind.
Yeah. So my very first game at SC, we're playing Louisville on a weekend. Lelo Prado, is that right, John?
Yeah.
Ended up at Tampa. Yeah.
So he was at Louisville, and they're playing us at Dado, and Pryor's the opening night starter. And Pryor goes punch out, base hit, walk, punch out, walk, bases loaded, 1 out, punch out, punch out. So this is my first experience coaching with him. And John and Ben know he always had that clipboard, and it was pluses and minuses. And he would write game notes, plus good things, bad things. So Pryor comes off the mound, and this is Mark Pryor, the Golden Spikes year. And he goes, hey, Mark, come here. And so he sits down on the bench, and he takes his sheet, he flips it over. And Mark had thrown 27 pitches that inning. And he goes, "Hey, Mark, look, here's the deal. 27 times 9," and he's doing the math for Mark, "is whatever it is." And he goes, "Mark, you need to throw more effing strikes because you're not gonna pitch the innings we need you to." And I was like, "Oh my God." And then the John and Ben also know this. The kind of trademark Mike move was, because he always had a chair and a bucket. And if that clipboard went bam on the bucket, you were like, "Oh boy, hang on to your you-know-what, because he's going to get into somebody." So that was something. The other thing was, in 2001, we're playing in the World Series. We're second and third, no outs. 1 out maybe. But anyways, guy hits a ground ball to third base. Kevin Howard from Southern California is the third baseman at Miami. He's playing back. We're on. We take off. Kevin Howard just goes boom to home, tags the guy out. Well, we all know what you're supposed to do if you're out is stay in the rundown. The runner at second moves to third, stay there. The runner from home hustles all the way to second while the runner at third staying in a rundown. We messed it up. We totally messed it up. Next guy comes in, ground ball, double play. We end up losing that game. The next fall, which would have been 2002, we finished every inter-squad game second and third, 0-1 outs, and would work on that play. Because like John had said, or maybe it was Ben, if we didn't do something well and we never coached it well, he took complete, responsibility for that. And that's what happened. I'm telling you, like 50 times that fall, we would finish a inter-squad or a practice, second and third, no outs, 1 out. We're going to work on the play, and you're going to hit the ball, and you're going to hustle to second, and you're going to sprint to third, and you're going to stay in a rundown, because we were never going to make that mistake again.
Oh, I love
that. That story was still told in 2018, Lonnie.
Yeah, I'm sure it was.
So great. John, go ahead.
Well, a couple things. We were playing Stanford one night. It was Jeff Austin and Seth Etherton, two legendary Pac-12 pitchers that were first rounders. Jeff was a first rounder with the Royals, I think a junior, and Seth was a senior first rounder with the Angels. But they're going at it, and I think they both ended up with around 15 strikeouts. Mike Gilmore was the umpire, and he loved the 4 spot, and he loved 6 inches off the 4 spot, and we were pounding the 4 spot, and
down and away for those not on the
down
West
and
Coast.
away, down and away, down and on the outer half, and he told me to throw a pitch to Jody Garrett, and Jody Garrett hit the pitch over the scoreboard.
Oh no!
And Mike never really told me what to throw, or unless he was like with Lonnie, every now and then he would say, "Hey, I want this breaking ball. I want."
Yeah.
And it literally was the only pitch he called that night. And I'll never forget. He goes, "Hey, if you ever listen to me again, you're fired." and it was like, oh God, just the dialogue, right, of that. It was so remarkable, because it literally was the only pitch, and we lost 1-0, and it just happened to be Jody Garrett up there, and he hit it over the scoreboard at Dato. One other story. Well, 2 other stories, real quick. We lost LSU. We got pounded by LSU in the '98 World Series, 10-8. Seth Etherton gave up 8 home runs, and it was the most home runs in the history of Omaha. And like Lonnie said, he break down the game, the good, the bad, and each inning. And I kind of do that a lot of times now, and kind of like the way Skip did. And before anybody went out, he goes, "Wait a minute, stop! Everybody, stop! Is there anybody in this room that doesn't think we can win this tournament?" You know, he just, and it was like, I mean, that was the biggest message he sent after that game. And then obviously we went on and we won the World Series, but it was like the confidence that he installed in his players. That was a story. The other story was a Mike Penny story, and I hate to use that name, but Mike was a converted, really good athlete from Santa Margarita High School, I believe, and down south. And he was a converted pitcher. And Frank recruited him. Frank Cruz recruited him. Great athlete. And we made him we made him basically a pitcher. And his first outing, he you know, we call the pitches and line. It was against Stanford. And I remember he gave up all kinds of line drives and got hit around and the whole deal. And Mike kind of sensed that, you know, Mike questioned the pitch calling. And so he brought in Mike after the game and said, "Hey, Mike, you know, I like you. I really do like you. Okay. You need to know that. But at the same time, Mike, as we all know, you know nothing about pitching. We just converted you. And after about the 8th laser that you gave up, I peeked up off my chart and I thought I saw you looking into our dugout." And I said, there's no way he's looking into our dugout. There's no way he's questioning the pitch. Well, after about 3 more lasers, Mike, and he's talking to Penny, right? And as an assistant coach, you know, you like that, right? Your head coach is backing you, right? And he's backing you in front of the players, in front of the other coaches. I mean, it was just so comforting and so like, oh man, you know, this is, I got a front row seat for this. And he said, "Mike, you know, you did question it, and you know nothing about pitching. And now, you know, after we get into this conversation, now I'm not happy." And, you know, he goes, "Get the hell out of my office." And Penny runs away, you know, and it was just like, it was just a lesson. It was a lesson that this guy had your back. And, you know, he had, you know, he had trust in you and doing your job. He was not a front runner like a lot of guys are today. They back their assistants. They back, you know, they back their beliefs. They back their, you know, whatever their pitch calling, whatever it was. And it was so, I mean, he taught that guy a lesson, man. He taught that kid such a lesson in, you know, accountability and blame and, you know, making better pitches. It's more about pitch execution than the pitch and this and that. And so just a couple of those stories just stick out to me, the LSU game and then the Penny deal and then the Etherton Austin deal with Jody Garrett. Just, it's still, you know, those moments just were funny because he had such a strong sense of humor as Ben and Lonnie know. And he was unbelievably funny and he didn't take himself too seriously. But his loyalty toward the staff was so strong, and the players saw it. So there's no question on who the head coach was, who were the assistants, what their jobs were. You know, we're going to live and die with these, you know, with the decisions of our staff, and it was just so warming and so lesson. It was such a strong lesson to me at an age that, you know, you needed to be taught that lesson in terms of, you know, hey, what the man says is what the man says. And, you know, and then you just believed in what he said and he believed in what you did. And now the player believes in what, you know, it was just such a strong bond that, you know, I loved and he just stood for all the right things. So I know.
Hey, before you go to Ben, after he passed away, we did a Zoom with all his former assistants, including Team USA. You know how many assistants he had, Roon?
No.
21.
Really?
I mean, the guy coached almost half a century.
Yeah, that's bonkers. That's like
he had 21 assistant coaches.
Holy, that's crazy.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, I just had to.
No, that's great. That's wild. Yeah. Ben, go ahead. What's a story that stands out, or stories?
I think for me, to name one would kind of just be this 2014 postseason stretch. And that was my first year coaching. I knew nothing about coaching. I remember when I first got the job, Coach Gillespie told me you're going to coach third base, and he drew the third base coaching box, and he said you got to stay on the foul side. Of that, you can go as far as you want to the foul side, and as far as you want to the outfield side, and you got to wear a helmet. And they walked away.
That's so great.
And so then just the stuff that I'm learning my first year, just watching him coach. And we had a good team. It was kind of the position players led by like Taylor Sparks, Connor Spencer, Chris Rabago. And then on the mound, Andrew Morales was a superstar, Elliott Surrey, Evan Brock in his fifth year. So we're having a good year. We lose 8 straight conference games to finish the year. Close, 1-run game, close games late. And I remember after the last game, Coach Gillespie tells the guys that, hey, we're not going to watch the show as a team. I don't want to officiate a funeral. And so we kind of watch it as a staff, not knowing what was going to happen. We get in. The players, they're all watching in the clubhouse. We go out to practice. Practice isn't going good. Coach Gillespie ends practice early, sends the guys home. And we're getting on a plane to go to Oregon State in 2 days. We go to Oregon State. We end up winning that regional and the if necessary Monday night game. A really good Oregon State team. Then we go to Oklahoma State the next weekend. And I feel like with Coach, we had good players, but with Coach Gillespie, kind of like what these guys said, you always felt like you had a little bit of an advantage with his intelligence, experience, fearlessness in the postseason. That's what you wanted. We go to Oregon State in the Super Regional. I think we win 6-7 or 8-1 in the first game. There's a 2-strike squeeze in there. In the Oregon State game, that Saturday night winners bracket game, there was a double squeeze. And I think that Oklahoma State game, I think we scored 8 runs without the ball leaving the infield. Then we beat them 1-0 in game 2. We go to Omaha. We beat Texas. We lose to Vanderbilt when we got like a 4-2 lead in the 4th or 5th, ended up losing to Texas. So we have this huge run. And just to see that in my first year of coaching, like what Coach Gillespie meant, preparation, postseason, all that type of stuff. And then about a week, 2 weeks before he passed, we're in his living room watching an MLB game. Michael Conforto's up, and he remembers and talks about how when Conforto came up, we played him with 4 outfielders one time.
Oh, wow.
A different time he tried to bunt. And so we're talking about that 10 days before he passed, that 2014 Oregon State Regional. So kind of like that sequence of events would be my story.
Oh, so good. Goodness gracious. Hey, fellas, let's wrap with this. So, Lonnie, I'll start with you. The other thing that Coach Gillespie was famous for was his rules. And, like if you're not, by the way, if you're listening to this and you're not following Jerry Weinstein on Twitter, you need to do that, hit pause and do that right this second. Like J-Dub's Twitter is amazing, but he puts Coach Gillespie's rules up on his Twitter page on occasion. Now he can't put them all up at one time because there's 4 pages, which is hilarious because who would have 4 pages of rules in 2025 when if you have rules, you could police it or you have to police them. But, of course, Skip could get away with it and do it. So, Lonnie, you spent a lot of time with those rules. If you want to pick a rule or if you want to just describe the sequence.
Well, I mean, the thing that people need to understand about those rules that Jerry puts out is they're all based off of, they're not the be on time, don't be late, don't do this, don't do that. They're all based off of transgressions that previous players committed. So, and then there were some unique things. The beauty of the rules was it would be a pay-per-view on HBO special for people to watch them because all the veterans had heard it. And then there's others that are, added as years go on. But And it's all the new guys that have never heard this before. So here's a guy who's this mountain of a person delivering all these rules, 4 pages long, and it's literally a stand-up comedy routine because all the returners are hysterically laughing, and the new guys are like, what's going on here? You know, and then, but there were so many life lessons in it, you know. Don't be a zero, tip the waitress. You know, summer ball, which is, you know, so applicable nowadays with the way summer ball, you're going to be the first there. As soon as we're done, you got 48 hours to get there, and you're going to stay to the end. You know, don't date the summer ball, whatever girl, you know, be original.
The original, that's good.
You know, and I mean, and they were all literally based off of what other guys had done. They you know, and he had clever nicknames for the rules, and it was literally the highlight of the year. I mean, there was 5 things you looked forward to: opening day, first day of fall practice, first league game, getting to postseason, and the rules. They were the best.
Oh, so good. Coach Savage, how about you? Any of the rules jump out, or any experiences with the rules that jump out?
I think batting gloves and you know, hanging out of your back pocket. I love that one. He hated that. Sunglasses on top of the hat, not worn, you know, for baseball purposes. Sunglasses worn on hats at night. He was, that drove him nuts. The shoe polish. I love the shoe polish for, you know,
Ooh.
in terms of like a hit by pitch, or, you know, have the ball, you know, marked, and just, I love the shoe polish. I mean, everybody's shoes were polished every game. I love that. You know, the tape on the wrist, you know, you had to put a wristband, I think, over the tape. he hated tape on guys' wrists.
Oh, wow.
Just, you know, oh yeah. I mean, you know, he wouldn't survive, obviously, in today's world, for, you know, in terms of some of these things. I mean, he'd just shake his head, man. And it was just so, you know, at the time, you know, I grabbed a lot of those rules, and, you know, you still kind of incorporate some of those rules into your own program today, but it just, like Lonnie said, they were just so genuine and so, you know, meaningful, that guys, you know, some of them were on the, you know, like he's talking about the summer baseball and the dating, you know, he there were some classic ones, but there was also some in-game ones that, you know, today make a lot of sense, but he'd also be in the HR's office probably a lot today.
Yeah,
too.
that's right.
We all know that. But he, those rules really stood out to me, and just in terms of just, you could just tell what a Canyon player looked like. You knew what Jock Jones or Jenkins and those guys looked like. I mean, they all looked the same, and they all, you know, that was so warming. I think is a USC player looked the same, even though, you know, so much talent. It was just all about team, and he made them look like a team, and nobody was kind of doing their own thing. Nobody was standing out for, you know, doing something goofy. And I think a lot of these rules were just based off that. And like Ben said, they're just ultimately all about winning, about what equates to winning and what equates to losing, or what's gonna you know, what's gonna open the door for you to lose. And, you know, a lot of these rules, you know, as Lonnie has, I think he has those on the wall.
Yeah.
You have those rules on the wall, Lonnie? There you go.
So
Yeah,
cool.
there you go. So if we could zoom in on that, that would be great, Rooms. But
I'm gonna put
You know,
some pictures of that on Twitter. So
Here was
cool.
another great rule. He had this, you could wear one chain.
yeah,
and
yeah,
it could
chains.
It
Eight
could have a cross, or it could have the Star David or whatever. And he would say, you can't have your number on it because I'm pretty sure nobody's praying for you.
Yeah. Yeah. He didn't like chains.
And then, you know, so like you can wear a chain with a
buttons all the way
cross
up.
or some sort of religious thing. And, you know.
And if
It was
the
uniform.
chain,
It was uniform. It was uniform. I mean, you know, a uniform. You know how you go into back in the day, you'd go into big league clubhouse, and this is what a New York Yankee looked like, or this is what a LA Dodger looked like. I mean, he had that. He had what a USC Trojan should look like, or you know, UC Irvine Anteaters. I mean, and when you played that team, you had to deal with that look, that baseball. It was a baseball look. It was a winning look, and you know, it just worked. And so a lot of those rules were. So to this day, it's too bad that some of them are still not in place because a lot of them are winning traits. So
Ben, you have a favorite one?
Yeah, I think, well, these, you know, Coach Savage was talking all about it, and we all marvel at Coach Gillespie's vocabulary, and he used to teach the guys uniform, that prefix uni, it means one. We're all going to look alike. You know, and I'm glad Lonnie went there with the necklaces and the chains, that you're allowed to wear one and it had to stay tucked in your shirt. And that if it couldn't stay tucked in your shirt, you could offer up a staple gun to make sure that it could stay inside of your shirt. And it's kind of like how Lonnie said, you know, they were named after guys. One of my favorite parts kind of about the rules is when there would be an off-field issue and you were fortunate enough as a coach to be around him when the player was explaining their side of the story. And oftentimes it would end with Coach Gillespie telling the kid he was more disappointed that thinks so little of Coach Gillespie's intelligence that he thinks he would believe that story that he was being told. which I think of often as we get some of the, you know, the excuses or some of these other things. He'd be more upset about somebody actually thinking that he would believe that story. So that would be my rules part.
Oh, that's so good. That's great. Well, let's wrap it there, you guys. That was awesome. I knew the hour would fly by, and I'm so glad this was the perfect kickoff to this season's Sunday Night Convos. And you know, like obviously for all of us, Skip meant so much. And you know, I think about your guys' careers and how much Skip influences you all and how much you have accomplished. And he's just, I think legend is the word. I think one of one. There'll never be another career like his. Never, ever, ever. You know, to win a national title as a player and then have to start a junior college program out of thin air and then coach at the most storied program in history and, you know, win a national title there, and then to recreate his career at Irvine. And just the way he did it with his own personality. This is my final factoid I'll give everyone as we wrap. My first 3 years at Arizona State, the Friday night pitchers, and Lonnie and John, this intercepted you guys. The first 3 Friday night guys I experienced playing against USC were Barry Zito, Rick Courier, and Mark Pryor. And two of those names are impact big leaguers, obviously. I mean, God knows what Pryor would have accomplished if he had stayed healthy. You know, for many of you listening, for a lot of you, maybe, I guess you know Rick Courier, but Rick Courier, those other two were like impact big leaguers. There was no doubt they were going to be impact big leaguers. Rick Courier was 5'8", maybe. It was the ugliest pie throwing stroke. I don't even know how you guys took him, John. He must have won 1 million high school games, but boy, could he rip a slider. And Courier had to pitch on Pryor had to pitch on Saturdays as a sophomore and watch Courier pitch on Fridays. But man, he was gnarly, Rick Courier. I mean, when he pitched, it was not much to look at, but you better have your A game that night, because that dude, it was like you'd have to kill him to get him off the mound.
Courier was the Pac-12 career strikeout leader until a guy named Tim Lincecum came around.
He was unbelievable.
Can I give you a 20-second story on Rick Courier?
Yeah, go for it. Please.
So Rick Courier, like you said, was 5'0", and he had a slider that was unhittable. And he wanted to throw more fastballs, right? Whenever a guy has a real good slider, he always wants to throw another pitch, right? Or a good curve, you know. he wants to get that repertoire, the usage. I'll never forget when Courier came in, and Skip was sitting there, and I was sitting there, and Rick goes, he goes, "Hey, I want to throw more fastballs," and then there was dead silence, and Skip, and I knew something good was coming, and he goes, "Rick, as we do as well. We want more fastballs as well. But Rick, you know, and we know that your fastball command is poor. And if you could throw more strikes with your fastball, we'd be more than happy to throw more fastballs. But until you start doing that, Rick, trust me on this, we will throw sliders. And we're going to keep and it was just like, you know, I mean, what else is there to talk about? Right. I mean, hey man, you got to get better fastball command, or else, I mean, we start throwing more fastballs. And it was just another lesson on, you know, this long thought topic that got squelched in within 20 seconds. And, you know, it was like right on. It's like, hey, we want to throw more fastballs too, but we just don't want to throw fastballs. We don't want to throw balls. And it was just another lesson I thought for a pitching coach that the head coach was saying something that, you know, we're all thinking. And it was so funny. That's my Rick Courier story.
Oh, so great. The perfect one to end on. So, like I said, Skip Gillespie, 1 of 1. I think we all miss him. You know, passed away in July of 2020. So it's been 5 years. And they'll like we said, there'll never be another career like that. And that kind of makes me sad, but makes me very happy to have gotten to experience a part of it. Just an absolute legend. And yeah, so fun. Like you said, Lonnie, we could spend 3 hours. We could spend 30 hours telling these stories. What an incredible impact. So I appreciate you guys doing this with me. This was so fun. For the listeners, next Sunday, we're going to go to the Midwest. We're going to do the 2012 Kent State run to Omaha. You know, to think about a MAC school getting to Omaha, you know, first time in forever, and what an incredible run that was. And so, you know, we'll have Scott Daly and Kyle Halleck and Mike Birkbeck on to do that. It's going to be great. I can't wait to do that. So, gentlemen, really appreciate it. For all the listeners, thank you for tuning in, and we will catch you next time on the D1 Baseball Podcast.